That simple routine right there is just structuring out how I'm going to execute the rest of the day. If I can get that W under my belt, I can win the rest of the battles that I have, because I woke up not losing, I woke up winning. And it's just one of those things to me. Like I said, I treat myself like an athlete. I treat myself, the game of business, like I do sport as a game. And I'm just trying to continuously get better at that. So the same way that a basketball player has a warm-up routine before every game, that's my morning, evening ritual.
Hello and welcome to the Who's Going to Stop Me podcast. Join us on an exciting journey to the depths of the human mind and soul of those who have been successful, of those who have been maybe where you want to go. I promise you one thing and one thing only by listening to this podcast, and that is a life that is more full, that is more exciting, and that will bring you more fulfillment. This episode features Chris Barnard. He's the co-owner of Strength Camp gym with locations all over the world. He's also the founder of Overtime Athletes with over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. He coaches NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball players to reach peak athletic performance. But he's not just an all-star performer in athletics, but also in business and in his personal life as well. The most powerful ideas you'll learn from Chris include LeBron James's secret to success and how he adapted this unique idea that he learned from LeBron into his own life and business. The blueprint to structuring your goals, your day and your year broken down to the hour so you can replicate Chris's success. How to find a mentor like Elliot Hulse if that's even what you need. Finally, how to cultivate work ethic and get results like a high performance athlete. So whether you are an athlete or a coach or a business person, you're going to take away massive value from this 1 hour conversation. Chris is absolutely blowing up. So grab a pen, get ready to take some serious notes. I learned so much from this conversation and I know you will as well. So enjoy. So how did you get to where you are today, being being a central figurehead for two businesses in the health, fitness, and kind of athletic training space? How did you get to where you are?
Yeah, well, it all started obviously from my passion for the field. When I was young, I was always into sports, football, baseball, basketball. And as I continued to grow, I found the weight room. And the weight room was a tool essentially for me to get better at sports. As a young boy, everything pretty much came pretty natural. I was naturally pretty gifted, usually one of the best on the field at any given time. And as I grew up, I hit a growth spurt and I realized I had to work for it. Things weren't as natural. I wasn't the big fish in a small pond anymore. I actually had to compete and get better. And naturally, I found my way into the weight room and realized that was a great tool for me to continue to get better. So like anything, I was bit by the iron bug, and I started working at a world gym. I became the janitor there just so I could get a free membership and just learn from other people. From there, it evolved into, continuing trying to play college football, continuing trying to hire coaches and trainers, and just study as much as I possibly could. The internet wasn't really big, so I was reading a lot of magazines at the time. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's not that there wasn't internet, it's just that there wasn't a lot of performance information. It was mostly muscle building information when it came to working out. From there, what transpired, to kind of shorten it, as I came home from junior college football in Arizona, I met a gentleman. Actually, let me say before that, I evolved into a trainer at LA Fitness at a chrome and carpet gym, where I would help, general population, one-on-one personal training sessions. Then I went away to school, played football in Arizona, and got injured, and continuing to try to play at a high level, whether that be a Division I or NFL level. I sought out another trainer, and I ended up finding one who later became my business partner, Elliot Hulse. He started off training me for football, and I went ahead and went to school. But my time there training with him and being coached by him opened up my eyes to other realms of the fitness business. When I was at LA Fitness, I got burnt out being a one-on-one personal trainer because, as you know, it was kind of odd hours. You work in the morning and then you work in the evening. You have your time off during the day. But you basically run about, 5 to 6 back-to-back sessions with clients in the morning and in the evening. And you kind of just burn the candle on both ends, and you just kind of burn yourself out, and you don't really enjoy it. I didn't become as passionate about it. When I was able to kind of connect with Elliot, he showed me how guys were doing this on the internet, and I could actually do what I loved, performance training. Before that, even trainers that I had, they were guys who were coaching people in the weight room, like in a LA Fitness, getting them better for football. This was a completely different style. This was warehouse. This was flipping tires. It was running and jumping, and that form of training that you get when you play actual football, but it wasn't really offered on a strength and conditioning level as far as your local trainers. So again, he kind of exposed me to some new ideas as far as, the potential that's in the fitness industry, and not only the potential as far as doing what you love, as far as passion and performance, but also the potential of not having a ceiling over your head. As I said, 6 hours back to back, there's only so much you could do unless you continue to raise your prices. Well, he showed me that people could do it online, sell programs online, and connect with other people across the world. So I went ahead and went to school at the University of Miami. I got my degree in applied kinesiology and physiology. I actually went there starting off pre-med. I wanted to be a surgeon. But as I kind of grew my relationship with him, I realized, wow, there's guys in this industry. When I was going for a surgeon, there's no denying in my young stage, it was to get money. I mean, that was really what it was for. It was for me I've always been ambitious. I don't come from, I don't come from, like, I wasn't broke growing up, but I didn't have any, there were still struggles. But, I wanted to be able to have that freedom and be able to obtain, materialistic things at that time. I'm like a young boy in college, a young man in college. So, I wanted to be a surgeon. And then as I continued to develop my relationship with Elliot Hulse, like I said, I kind of realized there was no ceiling above me. It was dictated on my hustle. So that's when things clicked. I could do my passion, which I've had for such a long time, and something I absolutely love to do. And in addition to that, I could build something in this industry where I don't have the ceiling over top of my head. And that's all I really needed to see. It wasn't so much that I saw a lot of money in it. It was just so much that I saw that my hustle dictated what I made, what my freedom was as far as, financially. And that's when it really kind of dawned on me. And, I came back home, and I immediately, when I was in college, I started Overtime Athletes. I continued to try to start to build blogs and make YouTube videos and just make products and offer my service to as many people as I possibly could, while simultaneously coaching athletes. When I graduated, I put my foot down and I said, I'm only going to coach athletes, because I was burnt out from training general population. I just didn't love it as much as I loved performance training. So from there, I was, running basically classes, coaching athletes throughout the day. And anytime I had some spare time, I was working online to build out content and provide value. And, over time, what happened was it just grew into other opportunities. We've always had ambition. We've always had, wanting to kind of strive to be better. And that's just kind of led itself to the 4 businesses that I have today. So the first one we started was Overtime Athletes, and that's in the performance niche. And, as things evolved and me and Elliot grew stronger bond and kind of continued to develop our relationship, we started the Strength Camp Gym, which is our 8,000 square foot facility here in St. Petersburg, Florida. From there, we did such a good job and we had such a good partnership, and we really got that thing going and really successful really quickly that we flipped it. And, then he came on, we came on board and partnered up for Strength Camp Media, which is our online digital marketing company in the fitness industry. And then we continued to, since we had so much success with our gym, we started Strength Camp International, which actually became, our ability to be able to spread strength camps across the world, as you alluded to.
Wow. So it's really like this kind of, and I've heard you use this word before, like this blue collar work ethic and ambition. You've combined those and just over time have built almost this empire, right? A mini empire. So that's really, really cool and inspiring as well. One thing that stood out of the things that you were saying is that you just kind of knew. Like once you knew you were passionate about sports, you knew you were passionate about training. Where did you get that from? Where did that come from? How did you know? Because I'm sure people will listen to this and go, well, I'm like trying to decide whether or not I should study something at uni, college, or I should pursue this thing that I'm like more interested in. Like, how did you know? Was it just like a feeling when you were like playing sports that just something resonated with you? Like, how did you know?
Yeah, so I think it was the combination of sports. Like, my goal, and I had this burning desire throughout my life to be a professional football player. And actually, when I was a kid, I didn't necessarily want to be a professional football player. I wanted to play football for the University of Miami. That was just everything I did, when I was young was kind of directed towards wanting to play football at the highest level. And, when things, as I started to mature and evolve, the weight room, strength and conditioning was just a tool. So it was actually a byproduct of what my actual burning desire was. But then once I started to get into strength and conditioning, I just fell in love with everything I consumed. And most young men come across this at one point in time in their life, right? They come to an adolescent age, they start to do some push-ups, they start to lift a little bit of weights, they look a little bit different in the mirror, and all of a sudden, that what transpires is they fall in love with it, or they start to do it and they want to get in shape and grow muscles, right? Well, I kind of just did that to the extreme. And it was just one of those things where I just wanted to consume so much. And I didn't have the easy advantage. It was almost as if I had that and it was taken away from me genetically. It's hard to describe, but like I said, I was always the fastest on the playing field in elementary and middle school. And then once I hit high school and I grew like 6 to 8 inches in a year, it was almost as if that athleticism was just sucked out of me. And I lost that natural given talent. I was still athletic, but that speed and that explosiveness I had, it wasn't quite there. So the weight room was the thing that bridged the gap between that for me. And so I just wanted to consume and learn as much as I can. I just went, above and beyond trying to research and find everything. And through that, I think what happened was, as a young man, it grew in me because people started seeking me in my school to learn from. And so when that did, it kind of naturally, put me in front center as a coach. Even though there was guys that were stronger than me and faster than me, I knew. And when I talked, it was just one of those things, like guys wanted to work out with me. I would go run stadiums at the football field and, do speed training, and guys wanted to come work out with me just because I, consumed so much and had so many different drills. So naturally, not only did I love it, but it boosted my confidence as well. And looking back, from the level that I'm at now, I can honestly say that, there was the huge component of, when somebody strokes your ego when you're young, it makes you more of that person, right? So when they were, they were instilling confidence in me by coming to me as their speed and strength coach, even before I was even charging any money or anything like that. We had a weight set in my parents' back porch, and we would work out in the back porch, and I would have friends come over, and we would bench press and do all these other things, and I would help out with technique and stuff. So that just kind of cultivated the coaching mindset and attitude within me. So all the while I was being an athlete and trying to get better in the weight room to be a better football player, in parallel to that, I was being growing as a coach and learning how to be a good coach. And through that, I believe it was a process. One, obviously I fell in love with it because I could see the gains it was giving me, whether it be speed or strength or whatever it was. But then in looking back, I can say that it was the confidence that was growing in me from my friends coming to me and seeking me out. So I had something to be able to offer. I could provide value, and it's still the same as to this day. It's just a different playing. It's just a different game.
Mm-hmm. And would you say that because you said that there you were like consuming and you were going above and beyond, and you were really looking for the best of the best information to make you the best athlete you could possibly be. Where would you say that kind of, because people talk about like hard work and discipline, would you say that because you were so passionate about being an athlete, like it didn't really feel like work to you, that you just kind of were like, I'm going to consume this information, I'm going to do the workouts, I'm going to seek out mentors? Because I guess that's not, that's if you ask the average person, right, and they said like, okay, I'm interested in this, they might read a book on it, but they're not going to be have that thirst or hunger to go and meet someone who, say a mentor like Elliot Hulse or someone else. They might just watch a video online or something. So where did that, I guess this is a really abstract question, but were you always just disciplined in searching out information and looking to better yourself, or was it just a natural byproduct of you being so passionate?
Yeah, me and Elliot, going off of that, we often have a common saying that's a kind of like a joke, but it's like, if you really want to know what somebody's about, just look at their bank account. Like if you go look at somebody's bank account and see where their money's being placed, you could see what they're really about, right? So, I remember not having, the little money that I had, I invested it in that. I remember being in Arizona and not having too much money to my name and sacrificing some groceries because I wanted to travel, an hour and a half, 2 hours up north to be able to work with this particular coach that worked with NFL athletes. Like, it's just, down the line, there's so many stories of that. I remember putting Elliot on credit card. I remember putting my trainer in high school, who was a former football player, on credit card. Like, these were I was willing to do those things. But I say that because it's a little bit of both. It was a passion, and then it was a instilled kind of work ethic in me. I think the one thing about me was, I think at that time in my immature state, I was always looking for that magic pill. What is that one unique thing that's going to really take my speed over the top? And that's what made me constantly in a search for it. I have to admit that, like, although I had extreme work ethic, that those like dog days were there from my coaches that I worked with, as far as like the all out grind and the training sessions. But me on the side, I was constantly searching for the next thing that could, the next little tool or the next little trick or the next little drill that could get me better. And that constant search for more and more and more, when there wasn't a lot of information out there, is what allowed me to be, who I was at that particular time. And then that just kind of continued to transpire. I mean, all the way up into taking it, learning in school. Like I said, I went, basically a fancy word for exercise science. That's what I got my degree in. I went the pre-med route, so it was actually pretty awesome looking back. The sciences weren't great, but I was able to take classes where people went on to go to medical school. So I had a really in-depth base of knowledge, foundation of knowledge when it came to anatomy and things of that nature. So just the constant strive of wanting more is what allowed me to continue to gather more information, which then again is allowed me to be able to turn around and be able to spit it back out as value to guys who might be having that. And that's really my way of paying it forward. I think I was kind of in that right timing where as I was growing up, there wasn't so much information out there about performance. Like I said, it was all about muscle building. It was your muscle fitness magazines. And when I was going through that, I'm over here wanting like, well, how do you train for speed? How do you train to jump higher? And there wasn't that kind of information out there. So what that drove me to do when I actually had the ability to do it is it made me want to, spill out as much performance information as I possibly could. The other thing is that I noticed that now that I'm in the industry, a lot of strength and conditioning coaches like to hold on to their secrets or hold on to their methods and like kind of protect them. And, if you look at me, I'm kind of an open book. And I think that's why, maybe it's kind of one of those where it's like some guys frown upon that. But in my mind, I'm like, we're doing a disservice, or how dare I not help that kid who can't pay for it, you know what I mean, by putting it out there on YouTube, putting it out there for free because I was that kid. So it's just kind of come full circle, and it's just allowed me to again, the motive behind it has always been pure, and I've always just wanted to help and learn as much as I possibly can.
And I think like having that open book, I guess, like method idea, right? It means that there's going to be some kids out there, or some like young high school, like broke, potentially like world-class athlete who will watch your material, learn from it, grow from it. And then down the line, when he's like NBA All-Star or, NFL or, like a leading athlete, he's going to remember that from you, and he's going to come back to you, and it's just going to, I guess, almost act like as a good faith multiplier, So I think that's a really like interest. I always say, in any businesses that I run, is just give as much value as you can, like for free. And people are always going to think about you, because even if they can't afford it right now, when they do have money, or when they do want to buy a product, who are they going to trust the most? They're going to trust the person who they've seen produce results for them for free, and they're going to be like, there's got to be more I can learn from them. Absolutely. So I completely agree with you in that sense. And
absolutely, that's extremely well put. And I don't even know sometimes, like, I'm just doing what I'm doing behind a computer screen. I went to a pro day at a college. I was working with an athlete, and I was actually shocked because, I never know sometimes what my audience is. I can only know by the engagement and feedback I have on social media outlets. But I had two different athletes from that football team who I've never met before come up and thank me for my videos. And you're talking about guys who are trying out one of the biggest job interviews of their entire life with the NFL in front of NFL scouts. And they're thanking me because of some video I put out. And that was one of those kind of aha moments where I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't judge who I'm talking to or working with on a day-to-day basis, because you never know what eyes are on you, and you always got to lead with that value. So, like you said, if somebody were to put together, all my videos, I basically give everything out there. If I offer something, it's for me to continue to be able to do this, right? Because I always say, like, if you're, Jim Rich Pocket Broke, like, who can I help? Who can I help out there if I can't continue to feed myself? I'm no good for having all this information if I have to work a 9-to-5 where I can't continue to support this and continue to provide value. So I give everything that I possibly have. I just offer things in case you want me to actually do it for you, kind of a done for you service where it's like, I tell you exactly what to do. But if you wanted to piece the information together, there's nothing I withhold back. There's no method. There's no secret. And that's why, you make yourself vulnerable. I make myself vulnerable to other coaches in the industry. You're able to see my evolution from the time that I graduated college to now. In fact, I watch old videos, and a lot of times I want to delete them, but at the same time I say, hey, that's part of my experience. That's part of my evolution. Just leave that up there. Make a new video that shows where I'm at now based on the experience and the knowledge that I have at this current time. But the underlying thing was I had the courage to put it out that time. And I have the courage to put it out now. And in 10 years, I'm going to look back at the content I'm putting out now, and hopefully I'm able to say the same thing because I continue to evolve. I continue to grow, and I continue to have more experience as a coach. And I just want to continue to be able to share each and every step along the way with that.
That's really well put. And I think that level of honesty, even looking back and going, you know what, like my methods have evolved from this point, but I'm keeping that online. That level of like honesty and vulnerability, I think is the reason why now your channel's growing faster and faster. And I can really see, you've got 200,000 subscribers, which is huge numbers, right? That's like, I don't even know if there's a stadium in the world that can hold 200,000 people, but I think that's scratching the surface of where you're going to be over the next year or 2 years. I really see that explosive growth happening for you across all your like media accounts, because I think like when you say things like that, for me, it really personifies that your mindset is just so on point and it's just so impressive. So let's talk a little bit about, because in this day and age, I hear this term thrown around a lot, like finding a mentor, finding someone to like collaborate with. Could you talk about your process of when you first reached out to Elliot and started working with him, and then how it grew from maybe you seeking his advice and now you're co-owners of a business together, great friends, like maybe someone out there's listening to this and like, I want a mentor. Like, how did you do that? And kind of, walk us through that process.
Yeah. And we're in a day and age where we're so easily connected with so many people. Elliot Hulse wasn't the mentor he is today that everybody sees, right? I didn't seek Elliot because I wanted him as a mentor. Elliot was just a regular dude who was coaching. In fact, I went to Elliot just like any other coach that I had talked to previously and just needed somebody to help me out training. He just happened to be doing performance training where I had to drive an hour and 15 minutes each way to be able to go to his gym, because he was on the south side of St. Petersburg and I lived in Clearwater, Florida. So, I mean, there's about an hour and a half away when you're talking factoring in traffic and everything. So I went to him purely to get better for selfish reasons of my own, to be able to get better at the game of football, not to be able to get a mentor. You see, we're throwing around mentor now because of online and because everything's so easy for us to connect again, is just being a vogue thing. You guys come and seek Elliot now where he is as a mentor now. And in my mind, like you're constantly seeking that next person, or you have somebody in your mind that you want to get to mentor, that you kind of closed yourself off to who could possibly be the best mentor to you in your hometown, at your church, in your family, one of your friends, one of your friend's dad. Like you're the mentor. This whole like trying to find one thing, to me, is a little bit. I think it's backwards. Like I said, I didn't seek Elliot out as a mentor. I kind of came across him and I jived with him so much that he naturally became my mentor. And that's not to say sit back and just wait, but it's just be open to anybody and who you want to hear from anybody. Anybody could be speaking truth to you. He just happened to be speaking truth to me of where I was at. I was an injured college football player. He had recently played. He's 6 years older than me, so he was a strength and conditioning coach, and already in his career, he had the same core values that aligned with me. We both loved the fact that, I saw he worked hard, and one thing he took a liking to me was I always worked hard, and he always said it, as far as business, he was able to see how I acted when he prescribed, tire flips down the road and back. He was able to see what kind of character I had through the training. So we kind of, the relationship transpired as it went. And so, like I said, I guess the answer I'm trying to give is don't necessarily go look for online this famous person to become your mentor. Like, take the information and the truth that you might have, but don't necessarily attach to them. You never know who your mentor, a great mentor for you might be if you're constantly closing people off. Like, truth is truth and it's universal. So if somebody's speaking truth to you, you got to be able to hear that. And you might close them off because you might have this grandiose idea of who you want to seek out to be a mentor, and he has to fit this shape and mold for you, when really you could be influenced and somebody could speak truth to you that's not in that necessarily the image and likeness that you might come up with. Right. So it's just one of those things where, just going off your question of how people are seeking them out now. Yes, seek them out, but be available to the ones that are around you right now. You never know who that could possibly be.
I agree with you. It's definitely this very vogue thing, look for a mentor. There's almost like this element of laziness to it as well, because it's like, if I get that famous mentor, then all my goals will just happen for me.
Exactly.
It kind of doesn't really work like that,
It doesn't.
So let's talk about advice for athletes, because, you've got decades of experience in coaching athletes, and somehow we're going to condense that down into, into this call. But what, I guess a good place to start would be, how do you work with athletes that come to Overtime Athletes? Like, obviously it's completely different, but what's your kind of process of evaluation?
Right now, currently, I'm fortunate enough to work with Major League Baseball, NBA, and NFL guys. I do have some college guys and stuff of that nature. I still work with some high school athletes, which is because I love to work with them. They have great character. And I say that with the professional level because I kind of get a little bit spoiled, but I'm also, I've worked my tail off to get here. So when it comes to the evaluation process, most of these professional teams do an exit interview where basically they, with their coach and with the organization, whether that be from an actual physical standpoint, meaning they do their own evaluations, and it's usually done at an extremely high level. So for instance, just using an example, some of my baseball players this past off season, I actually connect with their trainers. I connect with their strength and conditioning coaches, and they'll literally send me a report of, muscular imbalances, weaknesses, tightnesses. I'll talk to their director of player performance. They'll tell me, hey, this is what we're looking for this next off season, which to me, because the game is so evolved and everything is analyzed, it really starts to help me out, because what that does is it draws me a compass. Now, I know some coaches would say, oh, you always want to make sure you do your own evaluations. And I do movement. I do get some measurements. As I always say, you can't manage what you can't measure, right? So I want to be able to show progress, track progress, but also see where they're at and see if there's anything that's exposed. Through my experience, however, I've been able to kind of cut that time in half by being able to just have that coach's eye. If there's something that I see abnormal with an athlete or anything like that, then I'm able to kind of, from an injury prone standpoint, I'm able to kind of either catch that, or I'll have some kind of insight on that from the organization before I get into the athlete. But for the most part, beyond that, it's really, hey, what are we trying to improve this off season? I talk to their closest skilled coach. I talk to them, and then I talk to their actual coach from the team they play on. And typically from there, I can start to draw up what I'm trying to accomplish, just to continue to go on the example of what I was using, so you guys can actually see it. Like, for instance, the organization was saying, and so one particular player was letting me know that they didn't know if he could play a particular position. They didn't know if he was fast and agile enough, have lateral quickness. So what we did was I took that as a challenge, and I asked him, do you want to play that position? And he said, yes. And that's been his position his entire life. It's just when he got to the professional level, they didn't know if he was going to play it. So I took it upon myself to design and program based around that. This is what we need to get better at to be able to excel at that position. And that kind of goes along the lines of, I always like to draw the example of LeBron James in the offseason, the second year that he played for Miami Heat. So the first year he played for Miami, he lost the finals to the Dallas Mavericks. And during that game, they went big. The Dallas Mavericks went big. And LeBron had to essentially play offense, but he didn't really necessarily have a post game. And if he had a post game, which basically scoring underneath the basket, he could have really been able to win that championship. So that offseason, he realized, he identified, he was self-aware enough to be able to say, I have that weakness in my game, and I want to add that to become a more complete, well-rounded player. So one thing that I always do, a strategy and a exercise I always do with every athlete is, what's that one weakness we want to add to your, what's that tool we want to add to your toolbox this off season so that you carry it on. So all while I'm elevating, every component of this athlete as far as from a performance standpoint, I always like to say, what's that one tool in your toolbox, even if it's not that I train it, right? So I might tell, one of my baseball players or something of that nature, let's say it's a backhand, like maybe you get one of those per 3 games or one per game. Even though that's something that you rarely see, let's go ahead and let's take 10,000 reps on that this offseason so that when you do face that, it's not a weakness now. It has become a strength. And once you actually focus on it with intent that entire offseason, you carry that with you. So in your 10-year career, that year 10, when you focused on it year 1, you still carry that with you because you went all in on it that particular offseason. And so I always kind of tell my guys that, let's focus on one thing. Let's do the strength and conditioning. Let's get you faster. Let's get you stronger. Let's get you more powerful. Let's focus on the thing that, the organization and that you want to see, whether that be power off the bat, whatever it is in any sport. But then let's also focus on that one particular weakness that you might face in a game that you might shy away from. Let's make that a strength. Let's flip that on its head. Let's do so many reps or whatever it takes for that particular weakness to make it a strength. And then it's funny because then they actually carry it in their toolbox. And what's funny is going back to the example of LeBron James, that next season and right before the finals, I think it was with the Pacers, he actually had to use that post game. Like I said, that offseason, he hired Akeem Olajuwon, he hired Wilt Chamberlain, he hired some of the greats and said, let me learn this, let me add to my toolbox. And then he pulled it out and was able to go and win the finals, win the championship based off of that one weakness that he had the year prior. So it's just one of those things that I constantly use and try to get still into their head. And that's really kind of where I start to focus as far as the off season goes. I only get these guys for a short period of time. My thing is, let's keep them, as far as longevity goes, let's keep them healthy. If there's anything that's, rearing its face there, a lot of times I say that's out of my scope, not because I can't do it, not because I don't understand it, but because I just don't want that to be my responsibility, or I should say accountable for it. I want a professional to be accountable for that. And I want to be accountable and I want to be responsible for elevating your performance. And it's just getting to that certain level where I know these guys can have, if it's out of my scope, I don't want to be, although I can point them in the right direction, I don't want to sit there and do manual therapy on them. I would rather somebody who specializes in that to be able to get their hands on that particular person. So, really what I like to focus on is how can we get better this off season, how we can continue to strive for more. And I think that's what they appreciate from me, because I'm always pushing the boundaries. You could be the best player in the world, but I'm going to find something. I'm going to find something that we can get better at. And that's just kind of where I tick, and what gets them excited to be able to work with me.
Taking that kind of philosophy of being self-aware, identifying your weaknesses so that you can go, okay, this is a missing tool from my toolbox. How would, say, a young athlete who maybe, he's a bit of an underdog, like he or she, maybe they don't get huge amounts of attention from the coach because they're not the top performing athlete on the team. Maybe they're young, maybe they're in high school, maybe they're a bit underdeveloped. Like, do you have any kind of mindset advice for that kid that is like, okay, I'm not sure where my weakness is. Like, how do I become more self-aware? Is there anything around that? Any advice around that?
It's the same process. It's just when you're in it, when you're young, some develop things faster than others when it comes to mindset, when it comes to all those things. And it really does come down to the athlete. So when I get a young athlete, it might not be something more performance-based. I'm alluding to the professional guys I work with, because they're there, they understand putting in work. With a lot of young athletes, it's no difference. If the weakness is their mindset, then I want to teach them how to get mindset. And I might really scale back some of the the more advanced stuff, and just keep it old school, and just keep it real dog days, where it's just a lot of volume, little rest periods, and I'm just really trying to test their will and their character by how hard they're willing to work. And then I always follow up with, after, they're laying there on the ground, or they're throwing up or something of that nature, I get in their ear when they're having their most struggle with their inner conflict, that mind that wants to tell them I can't go anymore. That's who I want to speak to. So as a coach, it's always something. It's you having to identify it, and that's what you are as a coach. You also are identifying, because sometimes they're not always self-aware. You as the coach, you have to be the bird's eye view. As an athlete, they're so close to the trees, right? They can't see the forest. You as the coach, you're being able to see the forest from a bird's eye view. So you have to constantly reflect and be their mirror. And that's what kind of the experience and being in the trenches has allowed me to have. So as an underdog athlete, sometimes they can come in and they can be self-aware. Sometimes it's their coaches, sometimes watching their film, being able to see what it is. Hey, how do we get here? Here. And then sometimes it's more of the character. It's more of the psychological things that makes them tick. There's many different things and aspects of being a coach. And you just, the psychology behind an athlete is huge. And I think at a young age, cultivating a blue collar mindset of just being able to put in that work and focused on that rep intently, as opposed to the outcome, is one of the most important things you could do with an athlete at the adolescent or young, the young athlete, in the high school level could have instilled in them.
Just to echo your words there, like I really like the fact that you would kind of push them and then almost break them, and then that's when you start talking to them, and that's when you start kind of almost tapping into their mindsets and kind of changing their beliefs or changing their patterns or habits or whatever behaviors they're having. So I think that's interesting.
This is from my experience. If you can empower, and that's through negative or positive feedback, because you have to know which athletes tick from what. Some athletes they get off on being told they can't do it, and some athletes get better by patting them on the back. But if you can empower an athlete when he's at his weakest, and you just broke him down, you not only create trust buy-in but now you're instilling that sense of confidence. They're broken, right? And by you coming in and lifting them up verbally, it's one of those things that over and over again, especially with a young athlete, that I'm just able to see. Just you know you're getting through to them. You know that they just got a little bit more confident. You know that the next time they face that, whether that be in a game-like situation or whatever, by the time they do get to the game-like situation, it's like I've already faced tougher things than this in training. And that's what you want to prepare them for in sports and in life.
Just to switch gears now, because I'm keen to talk to you about business, because obviously you manage 4 businesses essentially. So I want to kind of pick your brains about that. So how do you manage your time effectively? You as you mentioned, I can't imagine, right? There's 4 businesses, multiple social media accounts, multiple videos, projects, athletes. Like, how do you do that?
An awesome team. No, but it all started off, honestly, I discovered that thing about LeBron James that I alluded to earlier because I learned that in my own life. I draw parallels from sports, from athletics to business. I think I treat business like a sport. I treat myself like an athlete in business. And by doing so, I just am I'm obsessed with improvement. So I always have to get better. So when around that time, when I got I took over media, international, and Strength Camp Gym, all within about a 1.5 year period. So I went from 1 business to 4 businesses that all required full time within about a 1.5 year stretch. And I was not good at first. I was not good. I was running around with a chicken with my head cut off. I've always considered myself an organized person, but I needed to get better at time management. I needed to get better at being able to just push the ball forward in each one because I didn't have the size team that we do now. And so what I did was I did like anything. I was self-aware. I saw that more my weaknesses were. That's the one thing I can say that, if I wanted to give myself one compliment that I'm blessed with, it's I've always, I'm a Scorpio, right? It's the alchemist. I've always been able to kind of have that seeing eye, being able to look from a bird's eye view and be self-aware and kind of just audit myself. And through that, it's allowed me to see where I'm not good at. And then I just realized I have to put in the time to figure it out. That's what a lot of people miss, right? We want this instant thing. Like, I'm willing to just sit there and figure it out, whatever it needs to be done. So I bought all these books, and I started to see how can I get better. What are these things that the top entrepreneurs are doing that are running all these businesses that I can't do, right? Like Elon Musk, he's got all these businesses and he's running all this high level stuff. What's the difference between him and I? Obviously, he's a savant in a different level, but I was looking at all these other guys, so it led me down a path of just being able to books from goal setting to KPIs to scaling up to organize tomorrow today, like just time management books and what are the top people doing, morning rituals, evening rituals. It made me just force myself to start structuring every little piece of my day and have methods and strategies to work within that I still utilize today. So I know that every year I'm going to write out goals. I know every quarter, every month, every week I have goals and key performance indicators I'm trying to hit. Every evening I still sit down and pull out my planner and write out my entire day for the day before, down to the hour. Do I want to do those things at first? No, these were all things that I was like, man, I got an entrepreneur so I could sit on the beach and write on my laptop. But to be able to harness what I wanted to do, it took that amount of work. And now I have that tool, and it's made me such a better entrepreneur. It's made me a better leader because I'm always on top of my A game just from the structure I was able to abide within. Most people, they get this conception, they conceptualize in their mind what an entrepreneur is, and they just sit on the beach, they have endless money, and they're drinking daiquiris while they're writing on the computer. Well, it's not so much that, in the sense where entrepreneur to me is, I just don't have a man telling me to do these things. I just structure it out myself. So I had to realize and flip that switch for me real quick. Like, it isn't all, laying on the beach. It's actually, you still have to do the work, but instead of a person, a boss telling me what to do, I have the ability and the freedom to design my own structure and my own set of rules to play within, because we can all play the game of business. I'm just able to create my own rules that's allowed me, to be able to get to where I'm at. And so when that kind of clicked for me, I kind of just put together a strategy, and I put together, basically things that I do on a daily basis. I do a goal reflection, 10 minutes each day for each one of my businesses to make sure that we're hitting and the projects are moving along the way that I want to. So as a general, answer to your question of how I'm able to do that, I had to get good at it. I had to research how some of the top guys are doing it, and I had to find out other strategies. The two biggest ones that I would say is set goals and follow up with those goals. And you have to scratch and claw to meet those goals, even if you're hitting those, to hit those deadlines. If I want to hit a revenue goal by the end of the month and I'm, $10,000 short, I got to scratch and claw and stay up that night and figure out the next strategy of what I got to do, because I made myself that promise. And when I make myself that promise and I'm able to execute and hit on that goal, that's what breeds confidence in me to be able to do it the next time and the next time, and then continuously grow. The second one is just organization. Like, whatever it is, I know that the most simplest thing I've ever done that allows me to push the most amount of work is I write out and I actually have a program on this called Elite, but what I have is I write out the time that I allot towards each business every single day. And each business gets about 45 minutes. And between those four, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's 3 hours, basically a concentrated work time roughly, and change. And what I do is each day I look at that and I see what projects I have on each business. And I literally write out that one thing I'm going to do. Sometimes with one business, I don't have anything. I have to actually search for things I want to do. So I'll actually write that down, and I'll actually sit down and work on one small component. But no matter what, it's 45 minutes towards that task, or 15 minutes towards that task. Nothing more and nothing less. And then the next day I repeat that, and it's a compounding effect. And that's why it's like sometimes there's things where you have to mad dash and you have to do that, work, 1 week straight with little sleep until you get it done. And that's when you really start to get into that's if you strike gold, right? If you find something that's like, if you're mining and you hit gold, you're not going to just say, hey, I'm going to work 1 hour each day and continue to go back to the mine. If you strike gold, you're going to sit inside that cave until you get all the gold out, right? But if you're constantly trying to put something together and grow and are long-sighted, not just so short-sighted, and are really trying to build something that is sustaining and long-lasting, it's about little incremental changes and progress each and every day, and continuously to beat on that craft and get better at it. And for me, writing it down each and every day, what I need to do for each business, has been able to strive and get me further on each particular one. So those are, sorry, that's a long-winded answer, but that's really what I'm able to utilize to be able to kind of help myself in what I got going on as far as the 4 businesses.
That's actually just brilliant advice, like some really unique ideas. And it sounds like you're incredibly structured. I mean, you would have to be really structured if you're managing 4 businesses. You're essentially doing the role of 4 people. So, having really well-structured days and having kind of daily rituals and daily habits. I think, like people should really. I was taking notes while you were saying all those things, because I was like, wow, that's kind of unique. I haven't heard that. And I think you encapsulated like that's like an MBA in like a 5-minute answer right there. So like it's like, you know, backwards engineering what other people are doing, kind of looking at what lessons you can learn from them, being super organized, having goals for the month, the week, the year, and then following up with those goals if you committed to something, and knowing when to like put that extra time in if you hit goals. So that was such an awesome summary. That was great. A little follow-up question, because you kind of alluded to it there. You know, you write goals, you write your, I guess, to-do list the night before. You have these kind of daily rituals, and it seems very structured. Can you break that down for us? Like, what do you do like first thing in the morning? Kind of how do you wind down your day? Like, how do you kind of structure everything?
Yeah, so I actually have a goal tools that year when I had struggled, what I noticed was I was struggling to be a leader because I wasn't organized in my daily life. So, I often say like, I remember being at a certain point in my life where I'm like, why won't you give me respect? And then you realize like respect is earned, not just, given, right? So you got to earn it. And I had to earn that with my guys. And that came through the form of organization. When I was running around with a chicken my head cut off, when I was a solopreneur, like running around, I could do whatever I want. It was easy. I wake up, I can make a video, I can make a product. I work at my pace. Once you take on somebody else's livelihood, you have to start structuring yourself. And that's really what it came down to. So when I wanted to press to get better at those things and really say, hey, I'm all in, I want to get all of these businesses super successful. Not just that. My goal then became to get my guys successful. And that's what really made me step up. So what I did was I started reading books in all those realms I alluded to. And I pulled basically what I felt like the best strategies that I jived with that actually stuck, and they've evolved over time. So I basically have like a packet that I print out every year. And I usually do this in the first of the year. I'm not immune to the whole new year, new me stuff. I know it's cheesy, but I actually get excited about it. And what basically that kind of looks like is from an annual all the way down to a daily basis, just to run through real quick. I write down on the first page my yearly goals. I break those down into intrinsic and extrinsic. Okay. And in the intrinsic, I feel are the three kind of categories that I feel like I watched a documentary at one time. Again, all these are pulled from resources and stuff like that. So I won't go into those, but the three categories that I feel will make somebody happy or is actually research backed was personal development. Like, what can I do to develop myself this year? Relationships. What can I do to better my relationships this year? And helping others. What are things that I could do to help others? So I set goals in all three of those categories. And then I have extrinsic goals, which are a little bit more common for what we typically do when we do goal setting. That's monetary. What goals do I want to make as far as money this year? Image, like what are the things that I want to kind of do, whether this be body, I want to lose 10 pounds or gain 10 pounds of muscle. And then kind of what a category would be like status, materialistic things. What do you want to do this year? I want to buy a house this year. I want to buy a boat this year. So I break it down into 6 categories between intrinsic and extrinsic. From there, I have my framework of what I want to do that year. The next step, what I do is I kind of start to begin to structure my day. So I write out a morning and evening ritual. What I do is I write down a time that I want to wake up. Every year since I've started, I wake up 10 minutes earlier than the year before. So this year I wake up at 5:50. I think when I started business, it was like 7 o'clock or something. I don't know what it was, but I've stuck to that. And every year I try to wake up 10 minutes earlier. Hopefully it doesn't get to where it's 3 a.m. I hope I'm retired by then. But and what I do is I write out a series of lines and I just write out my routine. For some reason with me, and I know that there's research backed by this. I know Tim Ferriss talks about it, but I essentially, when I repeat the same routine every morning, it really sets me off to win that day. I can't really tell you what it does, but to me, it's magical. When I wake up, and I meditate for 10 minutes, I do the same exact hygiene routine. I hydrate. I take the same supplement, all natural supplement stack every morning. And then I make sure that I listen to an audiobook on my way to work to expose myself to new ideas. That simple routine right there is just structuring out how I'm going to execute the rest of the day. If I can get that W under my belt, I can win the rest of the battles that I have, because I woke up not losing, I woke up winning. And it's just one of those things to me. Like I said, I treat myself like an athlete. I treat myself, the game of business, like I do sport as a game. And I'm just trying to continuously get better at that. So the same way that a basketball player has a warm-up routine before every game, that's my morning, evening ritual. From there, I have a weekly routine of how I, between each 4 businesses, I have, write out what I want to do. Mondays are usually my meeting days. Tuesdays is usually concentrated work and coaching. Wednesdays, same, and just down the line. And then Fridays, usually meetings. But I have that underlying concentrated work throughout the entire week. And I just kind of write out a routine of exactly what I want my week to look like. Then I break that down into daily. So I break down, 30 minutes for my morning routine, 45 minutes for overtime athletes, 45 minutes for Strength Camp media, 45 minutes for international, and 15 minutes for goal reflection, 30 minutes minimum of reading per day. And I just kind of go down and I add those up and I say, okay, so really you only have about 4 hours of work per day. I have to, I need to be able to get that done. That's my concentrated thing. That's my heartbeat. That's the thing that I do on a daily basis. And then after that, I basically break it down into, how I need to then again begin to structure. So based on those goals that I had that first day, I break those down into key performance indicators. And what I do is that's the way I track the goals. And that's what I spend doing 15 minutes a day. So let's say I have a monetary goal of, let's say, $1 million. Make it easy, $100,000 for whatever, the year or a quarter. I know down to the T what that needs to be per day for me to be able to earn. And I kind of just reverse engineer it. And so each day I look back at the day before and I say, made $100 yesterday. Well, what do I need to earn today to continue to stay on track to hit that goal? And that just starts to expose me and keeps my finger on the pulse of new strategies or new things that I need to do to be able to hit those goals. Then finally, like I said, I basically pull on my planner each night. It's marked on an hourly basis and a daily basis. So what happens is today I wrote out before I started this podcast, I wrote out exactly what I need to do for each business, 45 minutes for each. I wrote out exactly what we're doing for each project and what I need to do for that particular day. I have it down to kind of a T now because obviously I've been doing this for a little bit of time. So I know exactly what's going to be roughly 45 minutes. And I kind of I work on that. I work on that and then I take a break, 5-minute break in between and get right back to the next thing. And I know that it's only 3.5 hours for whatever it is, but that allows me to continue to push that ball forward even when you don't have it. It allows me to not burn out as well. I'll say that. And yeah, so like I said, I sit down every night. I spend about 10 minutes writing out what I need to do for the next day. And then I have the rest of the afternoon available to go to the gym and work with my team and just whatever else we need to do, whether that be delegating, working on a project with them. And that allows me to have that time because I'm not pressed for deadlines. I woke up at, I was at the office at 6:15, 6:30. So then I had, was able to knock out my concentrated work. And then the rest of the afternoon, I'm not distracted. I can be there present with my team and work on the problems that we have on a day-to-day basis. So forgive me, I went on a little bit of rant. I don't know if that answers the question.
No, that is more than answers the question. And I think that is that's a blueprint right there. Like, I'm so grateful to you for sharing that. And I really implore every single person that's listening, go back. If you missed that, if you weren't taking notes, like really listen to that. I don't structure my day exactly the same as you. Yours is like super structured. But then again, I'm not managing for, businesses with like multiple international locations and stuff. But like, I agree that structure is, to me, it's so clear that your success and your continuing success and your rise is just going to increase because you take that athlete work ethic and you put it into whatever project you're focusing on, and you not only work really and hustle really hard, but you're doing it with a really smart, intelligent, strategic background and view in mind. You're doing everything with strategy. You're backwards engineering what you want to accomplish, and you're breaking that down and chunking that down, and it's all structured. So yeah, I think that was brilliant, and like absolutely, like, I mean, I learned a ton from that. So I really hope the listeners can appreciate that and take some notes on that and apply it to their own life. I know that we only had you for an hour, and I really appreciate your time. I've got one last question though for you, and that's what are your goals? Like, what's next for Chris Barnard? Like, what's the big audacious goal? Like, where are we going to see you in a few years' time? Like, give us some glimpse into the future.
I'll keep this one short. So down the line, I want to continue to be the best that I can at what I'm doing. And if that's being the best performance coach in the industry, or, I'm not necessarily, there's no way to measure that, but that's my goal to be, right? I want to continuously push the pace and get as best as I can. And that's by helping as many athletes as I possibly can. It's been a passion. I want to continue to do it because I realize I'm only getting better with experience. I had all the head knowledge, but now being in the trenches and consistently being in the trenches over time exposes you to so many different athletes that you just continuously get better. So I think I'm just reaching my prime when it comes to coaching. 2, I want to have 1,000 strength camps around the world. I do believe that we have an awesome, amazing concept that I've trademarked, which is our strength camp method. It's a way of coaching in a group fitness class. I think that a lot of the franchises out there are extremely watered down when it comes to their fitness. They're very gimmicky. Although they get them to sweat, I think there's a methodical way of doing it. And we took strength and conditioning principles and packaged that in a way that we can have an NFL athlete or a 400-pound person who's never lifted a weight be able to operate within and get amazing results. So I think that we really have a great method that we're able to bring mainstream. And my goal is to continuously beat the pavement and learn how to do that and continuously get better, because I think we have the product. It's learning how to deliver it and continuously growing in that aspect of things so that each business can thrive. And then beyond that, then personally, I just want to continue to do the things and have the freedom that I absolutely love to do. I shift gears sometimes, but, I know I work online and do all these things, but I'm a Florida boy at heart. I love the outdoors. I love doing everything associated with them. I love spending time with my friends and family. That's the other aspect of me. I still have a strong presence with some of my best friends back home, and I want to continue to grow those relationships and be able to see, how I can continue to impact my family's life. And, I just want everybody to be taken care of. And if I'm able to do that and put things on my back, not so much from a dependent level, but I just coming from a love level, just being able to continuously do awesome things with them as I continue to get better at my path. And, just become the best that I possibly can in every outlet that I continue to do. I heard a saying, anything worth doing is worth doing great. So anything I do, I just want to be great at it or do my best, and I think I'll be successful.
Perfect. Well, what a great way to end the show, and thank you for all your insights, and thank you for all your content as well. For the people listening, Do check out Overtime Athletes YouTube channel. Strength Camp has a YouTube channel. Where's the best place for people to find out about Strength Camp, about Overtime Athletes, and about you?
Yeah, either one. Overtimeathletes.com, strengthcamp.com. You can also, we're on Instagram. I'm on Instagram, Chris Barnard, the Chris Barnard, just because Chris Barnard was taken. And yeah, you could look up our name or our companies, and I'm sure we'll pop up somewhere.
Yeah, and I highly recommend everyone that's listening check those out, because I've learned so much from them, and the content is truly top notch, brilliant content, really useful. And as Chris said before, he gives away so much content that you can take away that and design programs and learn from it, set your goals. So thank you for that, and thank you for being on the show, Chris.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been an honor, and I really appreciate the opportunity.
If you enjoyed this episode, please go over to iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify, subscribe to us. If you think we deserve a 5-star rating, then please leave us a rating. We also have exclusive show notes and bonus content over at whosgoingtostopme.com, so I highly recommend you check that out. For daily lessons and nuggets of advice, please head over to our Instagram @StopMePodcast. Until next time.